Hi. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So it's almost 2:15 here in London, and I know it's only 9 a.m. in Washington, where Matt is tuning into this call from. So good morning, Matt.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here. And it's great to be part of this Teens and AI Youth versus COVID hackathon.
Thank you. So everyone, this will be the last session of the Youth versus COVID hackathon. And really this session is all about trying to give you that very last boost, because I know many of you are a little bit stressed or maybe a bit more stressed than others. I know some of you haven't slept at night. That is not something we encourage, as long as your parents are aware and they have given you consent. But that's not something we want to encourage, because this was a 9-day hack, and really the level, the expected outcome is not meant to be too advanced. You're not meant to build Rome in one day. So this stream is really all about giving you that very last boost, so that you are confident and you know you're getting there, because I know I have seen all of your work, almost every single slide. So I know you're there. You have nothing to worry about. You're on track to change the world. And really, this entire event was about exactly that. It's about unleashing agency. It's about showing you that you can. And it's about empowering you first and foremost into changing the world, making it a better place, particularly now in terms of COVID, when so much is happening, and COVID as a context is really going to shape the way we live, the way we work, the way we are. It's affecting every single thing in our life, and there is a lot that we're experiencing that we don't normally experience, maybe not in the same way. So the event that we just ran, 9 days of it, and I know you will miss it all on Monday when you wake up and you will wonder, will there be another live stream? It won't be as intense, obviously, but it has been quite an intense journey for many of you. I know that. So tell me if I'm right in your comments. And I know many of you are studying in the middle of exams. We've had 14 teenagers behind you all the time, tweeting and managing this Discord channel and everything else. And I know almost every single one of them is doing their exams, and they still manage to do this, which was incredible. And I know every single one of you also has got either, if you're a mentor, you have your work. If you are, a participant, you have your exams. But somehow you've managed to persevere, and you were really determined to make this happen. And I have seen so many of you already on Twitter, on LinkedIn, really engaging with people in a very bold way. People I didn't expect you to even tweet at. We had Jordan tweeting at Lord Jim Knight, and Jim retweeted. And I noticed Jim does not retweet every single tweet that he receives. And so, well done. And I know you're all connecting with people on LinkedIn and engaging. It's a completely new thing for you to do. We managed to get you out of your comfort zone. That was really the intention there as well. But most importantly, we brought incredible speakers to inspire you, to show you what is really happening in the industry, like AI, like ethics, and really show you that there is technology that you can develop, and then there is technology you can develop responsibly. So obviously, I would love to know how it all went for you. So we will be sending you a survey so that you could offer us some feedback on how we can make it even better next time. But in the meantime, we have this incredible person with us, Matt Scott, who I met in London, literally in October. So Matt is managing NASA SpaceX competition, which is a global competition, and we participate in it every year. I believe we're one of the few organizations that's doing it for teenagers. I don't know. I don't think there are very many. Usually it's an adult run, or the competition run for adults. But I made it. I reached out and I asked Matt. It's been for 2 years now that I've been asking, would you consider, accepting submissions from teenagers? And Matt said, that's absolutely fine. And we've been doing this for 2 years. And last October, Matt came to London in person and he was a judge of that competition. But because he has been seeing so many pitches over what 5 years that NASA competition has been running this.
5 years.
5 years. So he would have seen, hundreds, if not thousands, of pitches, and he knows how stressful it is the last few hours before you actually push that submit button, and that's it. It's what the judges will see. And it's a virtual judging. This one, the round one, is only virtual, so the judges won't actually see you, and they won't be able to ask you the questions. All they will rely on is that pitch, which is just 3 minutes. Okay, and everything should be there. Your story, the problem, the solution, the route to markets, the everything else we've asked you to do. And it's really tough. I know how tough it is because I have pitched many times as an entrepreneur, and I've been so many accelerators as well. I know it's nerve-wracking, and I keep emphasizing that it's you are doing this via video, so you don't have to stand there in front of the judges and listen or anticipate some questions from them. The judges will be very understanding of the circumstances you're in, and obviously they will only be able to listen to the pitch and offer you advice on how to make it better. So they're not there to judge, they're there to help you. That's really what it is about. And hopefully the 10 pitches, the 10 teams that they will choose, we will work with you for the next 3 or 4 days to help you resubmit your pitches and improve on your product. And then we will see you live on the 15th of May. So this is really where we are right now, last few hours. And so, Matt, I'm now coming to you because I'm going to ask you to do a Tony Robbins on us and really give them that very last brief. And I know it's a very big ask, and I'm so happy that you said yes. Because it's not easy to be at the level of Robbins, because you have this power to really, get you all believe in yourself and everything. And I've been doing my best to do it over the last 9 days, but I feel like now I need some help. So Matt, it's over to you.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And thanks for having me as part of this. And I'm just so excited to be here. I don't know if it will be a Tony Robbins style talk, but I think that the thing that's so powerful here, as you were saying, Elena, is just like over the last 5 years, I've had the honor really of being part of NASA's Space Apps Challenge. And for those that don't know, so just some of my background, I am 28 years old. I live in Washington, D.C. When I first got involved with Space Apps, I was 23 years old. And my work primarily focuses on being a social impact project manager and storyteller. And the thing that I love so much about your intro, Elena, is that you were really alluding to this idea that I wanted to talk about today, which is not really even the idea of fear, but how we face fear. And the reason why this comes up for me, and it's so important for me, as you were talking about just pitching and how nerve-wracking that could be, all of my nerves were coming back to me as someone who 10 years ago, especially when I was just starting out in college, I was the most nervous public speaker. I would get up and I would plan out my slides and I think they would look good, but I wasn't always too sure. And I would get behind the podium and like clockwork, immediately my mouth would get dry. My leg would start shaking uncontrollably behind the podium to the point where it was coming up off of the floor. I would start sweating and just panic. And the reason why I mention that is because I'm so lucky now that I'm not in that place. I don't fear public speaking in the same way as you could imagine. I'm here now speaking, not in public, but I am speaking to a wider audience. And I want to talk about this topic of fear because I know it's something that a lot of our community face in Space Apps. So just to give a little bit of background for those who don't know, Space Apps, which Teens in AI is part of, is the world's largest global hackathon. So last year in 2019, which was our 8th year, we had 29,000 participants over one weekend in 225 cities and 71 countries all over the world, responding to challenges developed by NASA experts. And this year we do have Space Apps coming up October 2nd to 4th. If you want to be part of Space Apps 2020, we also have a lot in common with Teens in AI and are following in all of your footsteps with the Youth versus COVID hackathon, because we're doing a special hackathon, which I hope that you'll be part of. I hope Teens in AI will be part of on May 30th to 31st, called the Space Apps COVID-19 Challenge. And just back to this topic of fear, the reason why I think it's especially relevant is because right now, so many of us are facing fear. And I think in an unprecedented way, it's this collective sense of fear. Elena was talking about just the context that we're creating these solutions in with COVID-19, with coronavirus. And I know that in preparing for this talk, I was thinking about what are some of the things that I fear. And so just to kind of share with you as I get started, preparing for the talk, I thought through 3 questions that I would also invite you to think through. So the first question was, like, what is something that I fear? And so I'd encourage you to think, what is something you fear? Maybe that is, on the global level, something with coronavirus. Maybe that is more personal, like public speaking, like I mentioned, or even the fear to create something and put it out into the world, which could be really rough to get feedback on. The next question I thought of was, how have I responded to that fear in the past? So I'd invite you to think, how have you responded to that fear? For me, it's typically been a freeze response, or a response where I just kind of freak out. And I mentioned that public speaking aspect with my legs shaking, sweating, my mouth getting dry, just all of those nerves. But typically people will respond in either a fight, a flight, or a freeze response. So that's, really combating that thing that's getting you worked up and getting you anxious and nervous, running away from it, or not knowing what to do, which is typically where where I've fallen in the past. The third question I asked myself was, how do I want to respond to that fear in the future? So in other words, how do I want to feel when I'm confronted with that fear in the future? So I invite you to think, how do you want to feel? How do you want to respond to the fear when it pops up in the future? For me, it means, whether it's public speaking, whether it is a global pandemic, I want to feel calm. I want to feel brave. I want to feel courageous and bold. I also want to really feel powerful and like I could do something and make an impact in some way. I want to feel unstoppable. And so the reason why I asked myself those questions, and I think it's important to ask those questions about what your fear is, how you've responded, and how you want to respond, is because it helps you put into perspective just the impacts that fear has on your life, and how you can maybe use fear to your benefit to make some changes and create some things that will ultimately make the world a better place. The reason why I love this Youth versus COVID hackathon and even our work within Space Apps is because it's all about presenting something that people could be really afraid of and really challenged by, a problem that they have. And it might be a small problem or a personal problem. It might be a huge global problem. And within Space Apps, we've addressed both of those things. And the thing that I've really found, and that I've learned from not just Space Apps and meeting tens and thousands of participants over the course of my time involved with Space Apps, or even working with local leads and groups like Teams in AI, is that fear is actually, not something that will stop us dead in our tracks. It might temporarily, but ultimately what fear does is that fear is a source of power, and it's a companion to innovation, to creativity, and motivation. Fear, especially in the context of this Youth versus COVID hackathon, is the source of a lot of epic creations. And so that's something that I wanted to point to, because I know that especially as you wrap up the hackathon, as you get ready to submit your projects, there might be a lot of questions, there might be a lot of doubt, there might be a lot of fear around, is my solution good enough? Is this a winning project or something that will be recognized by people across the world? Will this be something that people will want to further after the hackathon, if that's something you're interested in? What will my friends think? What will my family think? What will the Teens and AI team think? What will the world think about what I'm creating? When it comes back to my fear of public speaking, I think it ties in with this because it could be really tough to create something, whether that is a speech that you put out into the world or a hackathon solution that you put out into the world, because you get so much feedback and hear from so many people. And it can be nerve wracking because you don't know if they're going to like what you put out into the world. But as a problem solver, what I would encourage is for you to think of three key things for facing fear and for addressing it, whether it's a hackathon solution or it's facing a global pandemic, or it is any sort of fear that you face in your life and any sort of fear that came to your mind as we started this. For one, I'd encourage you to start with really your why. And that's a tip that I've heard again and again, not only in space apps and not only in just working with teens in high school spaces who've created ventures that make the world a better place, but also in interviewing 100 plus change makers, which I've done through my work on Let's Care, 180 Degrees of Impact. And by starting with your why, you really understand what it is that you're hoping to accomplish with the work that you're doing. You really understand what what it is that's bringing you to this work. And the reason why I think it's so critical to start with your why is because there are definitely days, whether you are running a global hackathon or whether you're developing a hackathon solution, where it could get really tough. It could get really stressful, where the world could seem like it's a lot to manage. But when you remember your why, when you remember why you're there and what you're hoping to accomplish, it empowers you to make more of a difference in the face of the struggle that you might face. Next, I'd say is to think about your how. So how can you contribute? What skills do you have that you could lend to the world? So for me, it's marketing and communications and storytelling and community engagement. It's interviewing people. But for you, it might be artificial intelligence or machine learning or using technology in some other way that is benefiting people. We all have our own skills that we can bring to the table. And I think understanding not just why you want to do what you do, but how you're uniquely suited to make a difference is so powerful. I like to call that your real world superpower. So really that how is how you can make a difference in the world in one way or the other. And then finally, your what is just what's the solution you're creating that taps into your why, that taps into your how, and ultimately is the thing that people will see. This really borrows from this idea of the why, the how, the what. Golden circle is what Simon Sinek calls it, but I like it in the context of facing fear, because when we remember why we're there, we're less afraid, or we're less willing really to fly, to have that flight response, to run away. We're less afraid to freeze. We have conviction in why we're showing up and what we have to offer. And that love and that passion for what we're creating is so much more powerful than the fears that we're facing. So when we look at something like coronavirus, we might be afraid of all the impacts it can have. But when we're developing a solution to face that fear, that thing that we're fearing, it's so powerful that we know that we're making a difference. We know that this matters, and we know we need to persevere through the fear to make that impact. So time and time again, I've seen that through space apps. I would love to answer any questions that come up that you have about just my experience with fear with this global hackathon. But if there's one thing I would say in closing before getting to questions, it's really to remember that you individually, you have a world superpower. You have a real world superpower. I'll say that again because I think it's important to remember. We might all feel like we're powerless at times. We might all feel like we are stressed or like we don't know what to do. We might have people telling us that we're too young or not capable of making a difference. But what I want you to really believe is that you have a way of doing it. You might not know what that why is. You might not know how. You might not know what, but there is something there. And as long as you remember that, I know that one day you will find it and get to that point. But now I guess we're at a point where I could answer questions from the community.
Right, that was amazing.
Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you, Matt. That was brilliant. So, do we have any questions at all? Okay, we do have one question here from Logan. He's asking you, what is it like to work for space apps?
Oh, wow. Logan, thank you so much, Logan, for that question. And that's a big question. So I was just thinking just the other day, Space Apps happens in October each year. And I mentioned this year we're doing the May coronavirus focused hackathon. But when I started in Space Apps or on Space Apps and working on the global organizing team, it was in April. And so just a few days ago, I had, I saw pictures from my first Space Apps and I couldn't believe how long of a journey it's been and how epic of a journey it's been since I got involved. And so in short, it is like it's an awe-inspiring experience because the people that I've gotten to meet and the places that I've gotten to really go and experience and bond with the community is really incredible. I got to go to Space Apps London and the Space Apps Teens and AI London event. In the past, I've been to Space Apps in New York City. I've met our local leads from a number of different places, including the Philippines and Australia and just all over the world. And, the thing that it reminds me of is actually a quote that something someone said to me, but in my mind, it's a quote now because I always think of it, which is just that you could never imagine the things that will happen in your life. And if you would have told me like 5 years ago that I would have been here, not only as part of Space Apps, but also that I would have been here and serving in the role as the global community manager and storyteller for Space Apps, I would have been in awe. I don't know if I would have believed it just because it's really been a dream in a lot of ways to be able to work like this with NASA, but also with so many people around the world. And I literally wouldn't be here right now if not for Space Apps.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I have a question. So you mentioned briefly your fears when you were a child with public speaking. What helped you overcome those fears?
Yeah, so it, and I laugh because you said fears when I was a child, but really it wasn't that. It really doesn't feel like it was that long ago. And to be honest, just to start there, and something that people might experience, I don't think I was the most afraid of public speaking when I was a child. Like when I was in high school, I could give a speech. I got nervous, but I was able to still do it. And I took a public speaking class, which I think helped at that time. When I got to college, that's where the pressure felt so much bigger at the time, just because it was more people and I didn't know people and it was a lot more strangers they hadn't bonded with as much. And so what again helped me was taking a public speaking class, but also just in general, more and more practice doing it helps. So I've been someone who I'll say in the last 10 years of my life especially, I've kept putting myself in situations or wanting to be in situations, whether I'm on panels or speaking to people or making videos where I have to get outside of that comfort zone. So, as an example of this, even now, I make videos that I put up once every week or two on my LinkedIn. And sometimes I actually have my phone here. So like to illustrate, sometimes I'll do my, my video, and then I'll do another take and I'll do another take because it just won't be right, or I'll be nervous. And something I've realized is that I'm actually getting better at just doing one take or two takes. And so practice, the saying is that practice really makes perfect, but I think it's true that the more you practice and the more you put yourself in those uncomfortable situations, the more you get uncomfortable, you actually become stronger as a speaker. You become stronger at whatever you're doing. And it might feel painful along the way, but like speaking has actually gotten a lot worse, or not a lot worse, a lot better for me over time. And the one other piece I'll mention is that you have to have patience with yourself. It doesn't happen overnight. And the reason why I mention this is because for me, I hear time and time again in a lot of circumstances, wow, you did such a great job with that talk. And I just think to myself, like, thank you so much, first of all, but also it wasn't always that way. So everything's a process. It takes time, and that's okay. That's life. You'll get better. You'll be at that place you want to be if you just keep persevering.
Fantastic. Yes, that's a great way to end the live stream, because I can see they're all sort of nervous, and they working lots of beeps on Discord, but persevere is the one advice that obviously we all offer, because it's not long until you submit. And then it's only 4 days really, or 5 days until you learn about the results. But for me personally, like I've said it already before, you all are winners. So we are making it really hard for the judges to decide as well. And literally the first line of my email is, dear judges, it's not going to be easy. So I'm already pre-warning them, and some of the judges have been watching and seeing how you work. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough for them to decide on the top 10, and it's deliberate. And I know you've all excelled and you've all done incredibly well. So you should all be very, very proud of yourselves. You've all come very far. There were some teams who have never ever been to hackathons in the past, like never. It's the first time you're doing this, and it's incredible. So congratulations to you all. I absolutely cannot wait to see your pitches, your submissions. I will be sharing those submissions on LinkedIn, and Matt will be helping me and everyone else, because we all are behind you. We all want to help you tell your story. And every single team has got a very powerful story. Even this morning, I was on a call with team, and one of the team members just blew me away by mentioning game theory, and he's only 12, or mentioning, duality, or mentioning some other stuff like Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, stuff I didn't really read when I was 12, 13, Matt. They read this kind of literature, and it just, blows my mind every time I speak to you over phone calls, things you are interested in. It really does remind me of myself when I was 14, and all I wanted was to change the world. I had no idea how. I just wanted to make a difference. So I kind of figured out my why at your age, when I was your age, and I just didn't know how I would get there, but I really always wanted to travel, make a difference, and change many lives. And I'm kind of doing it now in my 30s. I'm so happy. And trust me, when you have found your why, when you have found that reason why you wake up every morning, everything falls into place suddenly. It's almost like a puzzle, right, Matt? Suddenly people reach out to you to help you further your life mission. And that's what keeps happening to me all the time. Serendipity, like everywhere. Everywhere I go, the conversations I have, people reach out to help because they can see that I'm really passionate about what I'm doing. And it, again, wasn't like that all the time. There were a lot of struggles and tribulations, and we all go through those. But every single one of us is a hero, and every single one of us needs to go through that journey. And it's not going to be a very smooth journey. None of us has it smooth, but you will get there, if you persevere. Yeah. So, all right. So unless there are some questions. Oh, okay. We suddenly have some questions. Okay, somebody's saying, I miss guys. Yeah, Logan is saying he will really miss it. And Femi, it would be great to have a reading list. Okay, so Matt, you and I have been just challenged. What should they read? Okay, Simon Sinek for sure, right? Why? Find Your Why. Probably is one of the on my top list. I mean, I love Simon Sinek, and he's hugely inspiring, and it's one of the books I would highly recommend you read. Matt, what's your top favorite?
Yeah, so the one that immediately, first of all, let me just say there are a lot that come to mind, and I want to say there are two categories. One is there are books that are about business and those kinds of professional skills, but I also love to read books that are about just not only mindfulness, but taking care of yourself as a human, because you need to be like healthy and happy and strong to do your best work. And so the first book that comes to mind is Without Their Permission by Alexis Ohanian, who's the co-founder of Reddit. And the thing I love about his book is that he talks about a lot of aspects of creating things, but one quote that he says is that if you're not entertaining, inspiring, or educating people, what's the point? You need to earn their attention. And I really like that, because it's just a reminder that there are other people on the other side of things we're creating, and on the other side of the messages that we're putting out there. And then there are so many so many great books out there on creativity. I would also just throw in The Creative Curve by Alan Gannett, who is an entrepreneur here in Washington, D.C., but he interviewed so many creatives from all over the world, or people who are creative in one way or the other, chefs, entrepreneurs, I'm sure AI experts and others. And that book is a good way of hearing how other people approach creativity. So those are two of my recommendations. But if my bookshelf was right in front of me, I would walk you through like all of the books, because there are a lot of different types that I'd recommend here.
Yes, no, amazing. Maybe you could share those with me, the titles, by message or WhatsApp, and I will definitely add them into Discord. Maybe we will. I know my team keeps asking me, don't create more channels. I'll create one more last channel in Discord. And that will probably be a channel called Inspiration. And we will add some books, some TED Talks, some other stuff that you can watch whilst you very patiently wait for the judges' results. So usually in hackathons, we have a live demo with live judges. It's made it a little bit difficult for us to organize it. And we have about 12 or 13 judges, and they're all really phenomenal. And they all are aware of what's happening right now, and all looking forward to this. So yes, we will create a channel with some inspiration, and maybe the mentors could also add some of the stuff that they're inspired by, and hopefully that will inspire you as well. So, okay, so this is really the last live stream. You might hear from me again today and tomorrow. Just keep motivating you and making sure that you are on track. But I will be busy doing a lot of work behind the scenes with the judges and everyone else. But you know how to find us, and we're all very responsive on Twitter and DMs and Discord. So do stay in touch and let us know how we've done. And hopefully you will all get out on Twitter and LinkedIn and tell us what it meant for you to participate, and leave us some, video feedback so that we can learn from that feedback. Tell us what it was like, the nights that you've spent doing this work, the days, working with teams. I would love to hear from you on LinkedIn or Twitter, so that we could share this message across as well. And once again, to reiterate, please remind me of the dates of the NASA COVID Hackathon, May what?
Yes. So the NASA Space Apps COVID-19 Challenge Hackathon, the virtual hackathon, which by the way is not only by NASA, but also the European and Japanese space agencies ESA and JAXA, is happening May 30th to 31st. And so if you want to learn more, you could go to either spaceappschallenge.org or covid19.spaceappschallenge.org. And I'll also just say, if people want to get in touch, you could find me on LinkedIn, Matt Scott, or you could find me on different social media platforms at Matt Scott GW. So happy to connect, answer your questions, give more book recommendations. But thanks for having me.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Tuning in. That was amazing. We don't have any more questions, but I know they all want to go back and work and finish their products and pitches. That was great having you, and thank you so much for accommodating my request to do this super inspiring talk. I think I wanted everyone to hear it, and hopefully that was enough to carry you through. And yeah, you know where to find us. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.